In April of 2019, a brutal murder took place on our farm. This was clearly a farm mystery that had me and the authorities scratching our heads. But all of that came to an abrupt end one day when the younger of the two sons died under mysterious circumstances. A human body casually hidden in this spot right here. It was late one evening on my farm, and I was transferring some chickens out of this hoop coop you see behind me and getting ready to move them into a new chicken coop, when suddenly an orange cat darts across the screen. Because I was so focused on gathering up the chickens, I didn't even notice that the cat had come into the frame until I was editing the video a couple of days later. Who was this cat? Where did they come from? And where did they go? Well, you'll find out that as well as many other answers on Unsolved Farm Mysteries. Release the Kraken! In April of 2019, a brutal murder took place on our farm. One duck was injured. Nearly a dozen ducks were bloodied and battered. The assailant snuck inside the duck house and had worked at night. And then the next night, the attacker came back and struck again, killing several more ducks and attacking nearly the whole flock. So who was this attacker? Who perpetrated this awful atrocity? Well, our farm security cameras detected this predator lurking around the farm. As you can see, it aggressively looked for a hole and point of entry to slip inside the duck house to perpetrate its attack. After consulting numerous online references as well as wildlife experts, we determined that the attacker was a mink. So I guess that mystery's been solved. Yeah, it was a mink. The mink snuck in over here. We have a creek that runs right along that side where the trees are over there. Minks are aquatic predators who will sometimes venture slightly outside of that stream or river or creek or whatever they're in to attack. And basically, because I had an unsecured duck coop at the time and we had yet to get any livestock guardian dogs, they easily snuck in, attacked, killed multiple ducks. I tried to stop them. They came back again. It wasn't until the third night that I was able to figure out how they were getting in, block it off, and keep my ducks safe.
The idea of a creature larger than a gorilla with an odor like a skunk might seem far-fetched.
I was walking through the forest of my farm early last spring, and as I was going through the forest, I noticed there was a clearing near a stream. Near that clearing and near that stream, I discovered a tarp. Being curious as to what could be underneath that tarp, I decided to remove it, and underneath it I discovered a bench, a wooden bench. I had never seen this bench before, I'd never seen this tarp before, but quite clearly people were hiding something right here on my farm, and me as the farmer was unaware of what it could have possibly been. The bench was a rather simple bench. The only identifying mark that I could really see on it was the name Tim carved on it. Who was Tim? What was the origin of this bench? This was clearly a farm mystery that had me and the authorities scratching our heads. Less than 1,000 yards from the spot I'm standing in right now, that bench was tucked away in the middle of the forest. And based on the look of it, it seemed to have been there for several decades. Well, over the last 12 months, our Unsolved Farm Mysteries team did a high level of research, and we believe we have gotten to the source of the Tim bench and its origin. 30 years ago, this farm was owned by a wealthy family from New York. The husband and wife were doctors, and they were using our simple farm as a retreat from the city life. They had two sons who would often stay up here on the farm alone while their parents were down in New York City working. Our neighbors who live around here who were living in this spot back then, they have many stories of crazy parties and loud nights and all sorts of bizarre activities. But all of that came to an abrupt end one day when the younger of the two sons died under mysterious circumstances. The rumors in the local area could suggest it was foul play, but a much sadder and more likely explanation was either drug overdose or suicide. That younger son's name is believed to have been Tim, and it is the speculation of the Unsolved Farm Mysteries team that his parents, who were absolutely heartbroken after the incident, set up a commemorative bench for Tim over by the creek as a special place that they could go to remember him. Upon coming to this realization, I have actually since returned the Tim bench back to its original resting spot where it sits today. If you have tips related to this or any other Goldshaw Farm Unsolved Farm mystery, be sure to call 802-552-8551. Walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. It was late one Saturday night when I was awoken on our farm by a noise. A group of trespassers had come onto our farm to recover their dogs because they had been raccoon hunting. Words were exchanged and the police were eventually called in, and thus began the great Vermont hound hunting war of 2021.
The man goes around and videos day-to-day things on his own property and markets it on YouTube.
Right. All right. That gives us some clarity on who this guy is.
He tries to put himself across as a Vermont farmer. He has free-ranging geese and free-ranging chickens and a guard dog, as far as I know. That's all he has for animals on his property. It's kind of hard to say he's a farmer. But we believe in cows and horses and pigs.
Yeah.
That's a farm.
What do you think his motivation was for not wanting you there? You know, a little leeway to speculate here.
The hound hunting. He does not agree with hound hunting, even though supposedly he hunts himself and he does not want hound hunting.
Okay. All right.
Even though he has a guard dog that is actually a trained killer on his property.
Come on, gals, fresh pasture, let's go. Follow-up around the whole hound hunting incident is arguably one of the most asked questions on our farm. I actually made a whole video on the topic. I'll leave a link for it down below. But yeah, there's lots of drama, lots of questions. I think a couple of things that I left out of that video that I wanted to say here in this Unsolved Mysteries video is, number one, my relationships with my neighbors, because that's something people ask about, it has actually been pretty good overall. You know, there are a handful of folks who really despise me because of the whole hound hunting situation, and that is what it is. And to be quite realistic, they wouldn't have liked me regardless. But I would still say that I have really good relationships with the vast majority of my neighbors and feel like things are positive, and I'm happy to be right here. I have not been, in fact, run out on a rail. I think the second follow-up question I get a lot is about the podcast Meat Eater. If you guys didn't know about it, Meat Eater is like probably the biggest hunting podcast in America, and the host Steve Ranella did a whole episode going off on me and how crazy I am and, you know, what's wrong with me, and that I look like a junior version of Jay Leno.
I would love to have him on the show and tell me where I'm getting this wrong. He's not opposed to hunting. He's not opposed to using bird dogs, but somehow he doesn't like hound hunting because the hounds have a tracking collar and you're not close to them.
Well, I actually had some conversations with his producer about going on the show, and we actually tried to set it up where I'd go out there, but ultimately they revoked my invitation because they just didn't feel like people were interested in the whole thing. I was even willing to go out to Montana to record the dang episode, which would have been a pain in the butt, but I thought it probably would have been worth it to spread the word about private property here in the great state of Vermont and the issues that are at play when it comes to hunting rights versus private property. So just to set the record straight, the reason I haven't appeared on Meat Eater is because of them, not me. But as to where does all of this hound hunting mishigas go? Quite frankly, that is anybody's guess.
Join me. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.
Last year, I worked very closely with my good buddy Alfred to try to design a new winter home for my geese and my chickens. While the project ended up being an abject failure, a bluegrass tune emerged out of that work to become a national sensation.
My buddy Alfred, he lives on down the road. He's a wizard with machines, a genius in blue jeans. Let's stop and say hello. My buddy Alfred, Vermont's best so-and-so. Bricklaying engineer, surgeon, driving heavy gear. Ain't nothing he don't know.
But who wrote this song? Where did it come from? How was it made? What is the origin of this song? Well, and to be perfectly honest with you, I just simply went on to the website Fiverr, not sponsored, and looked for somebody who was willing to write a song for me, and I had a couple ideas about the lyrics and like what the song should be about, and I wanted to craft a theme song for my buddy Alfred. And then this super talented guy by the name of Ryan Burns came up with it, and we went back and forth a couple times, refined it, and yeah, it's a pretty much perfect, flawless song. I'll leave a link to his YouTube channel down below if you want to explore more of his music. He's a super talented guy. And yes, I'd probably like to try to create additional songs with the help of Ryan. I don't know if it's about Mr. Toby Dog or the Barn Cats or something else. I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts down in the comments. But mystery solved.
Fact, fantasy, and history have come together to tease the imagination.
In the video where I made the completions of this hoop coop, many astute viewers noticed a very dark and mysterious secret hidden in the backside of my farm. In fact, right in this spot right here where the ducks are playing, they say that they could see a body, a human body, casually hidden in this spot right here. And for whatever reason, I have conveniently cleaned up this area over here. And if it wasn't for some eagle-eyed viewers who reviewed my drone footage very carefully, our farm would have gotten away with murder. And it was probably most likely perpetrated by Molly Murder Mittens here. But can anyone truly explain this mystery? Were these the remains of a person we dug up when we were doing the excavations to build the hoop house? Was that the body of a hound hunter who was trespassing on our property? Or did my neighbor Patrice make a scarecrow for me that we used to try to keep away the coyotes before we had a livestock guardian dog? But eventually I got tired of having the scarecrow, so I decided to put it in my farm's junk pile. And it wasn't until I started cleaning up our farm this spring that I finally picked it up and gotten rid of it. Whatever the answer is, the world may never know the truth. But if you have additional information, be sure to call our tip line and let us know your thoughts. She was one of my first chickens, and she was absolutely my favorite chicken. Margie the murder chicken. A chicken so diabolical and genius, she architected and executed the murder of all 5 of her brothers and sisters, becoming the lone surviving chicken to found the existing chicken flock we have today. She was heartless, she was ruthless, she was like Cersei Lannister with feathers and talons. But then one day in the summer of 2020, she wound up dead. But what happened to Margie? Was it foul play?
I see what you did there.
An accident? A predator? Did she just fly too close to the murderous sun?
You've married an Icarus.
Perhaps the world may never know, but I have a decent working theory. You see, Margie went missing one evening right around dusk as I was locking up the chickens for the night. And it wasn't really until about a week later when Toby and I found her while we were walking up in the permaculture orchard, not too far from where the cattle are today. Based on the wounds that were on her body, my best guess would be that it was either a hawk or an owl. Our farm hasn't traditionally had a lot of problems with aerial predators, but I think Margie the murder chicken might be the one exception I can ever count over the course of the past 4 years that we've been farming here. And in fact, soon after Margie's murder, we ended up getting this owl decoy, Owl Pacino.
Say hello to my little friend!
And ever since he's been perched around our farm, we have not had any aerial predator problems.
Join me. You may be able to help solve a mystery.
Here, little gooselings, here's your food, and here's some gooseling spaghetti. Enjoy. Allergic to cats since I was a child, I always considered myself not a cat person. But here I am, a 42-year-old man who owns 4 cats. And on our farm, we've had a number of unsolved mysteries related to cats.
A rational explanation is hardly necessary.
For example, there was Dave the cat, who I tragically found incapacitated on our farm, and I rushed him to the emergency vet and ultimately had to euthanize him because he had some sort of neurological condition. Folks have often wondered if he had rabies, and in fact the test came back negative for rabies. He had some sort of other problems, but the vet said when I talked to her in the follow-up call that there was no possible way to ever save Dave. And then there was the case of the feral cat who had moved onto our farm a few months back, who was trying to steal food from my cats. I successfully trapped this feral cat, and I was about to rehome him to another farm when he escaped from the housing that I was keeping him in. I have still occasionally seen that feral cat around, and I have attempted to catch him, but unfortunately all of my attempts have been unsuccessful, and he's still at large in the area somewhere. Of course, then there was Lil Barn Cat, who was our second barn cat that we got after Pablo Barn Cat. She was an outdoor cat, but she was unfortunately hit by a car because our farm is pretty close to the road. She suffered some major injuries, and we never thought she was gonna make it through, but she has made it through, and she's now living a life indoors as a full-time house cat. She has adjusted really well to being a house cat, and in fact, right now, as I was checking in on her this morning, she was actually getting her morning tan along with our seedlings. Yeah, the seed setup this year is like a kitty tanning bed. Hey, you two, stop it. Probably the most asked about cat mystery on our farm is the one involving Hobo Cat. The mysterious cat that showed up a couple years back helped us out when our farm was being overrun by rodents, and then as quick as he arrived, he ended up disappearing again. Well, Hobo Cat was seen in the center of town a few months after he was seen around our farm. You know, I tried to trap Hobo Cat a lot, but he did a great job evading capture, and he is still at large as well. You never know what happens with these feral cats. I have seen no sign of Hobo Cat in more than a year and a half, so I can only hope that he's doing well and is happy and healthy and safe somewhere. Which then brings us back to the mystery we started this video with. The mysterious orange cat that you saw when I was moving my chickens a couple of days ago. Who was this cat? Where did they come from? And where did they go? Well, to be quite honest, I have solved this mystery. That mysterious cat was actually our friend Ginny Barn Cat here. You see, she was following me as I was moving the chickens. The reason she looked all strange and orange colored was I was lighting the whole situation with flashlights because it was like 10 o'clock at night when I was shooting that video. And so for whatever reason, there was a weird thing going on with the camera color, white balance, and the light temperature, and the cast that it had on her. And so that cat that you mysteriously saw there was just simply Ginny Barn Cat. I hope you guys have enjoyed this installment of Unsolved Farm Mysteries. If you have any tips or questions about future Unsolved Mysteries, you can call our tip line, or you can leave your questions down in the comments section. And also be sure to check out another one of our videos, and maybe someday soon I'll make another one of these Unsolved Mystery videos. Thanks for watching.